Hi, I'm Bill Ohms. Over the next several weeks, I'm going to be taking a series of photos and videos in the shop so you can see step by step how I make some of my eggs. It all starts with planning. First, plans are drawn on paper and also on the computer as needed. Then you gather the raw materials, the wood and the silver. The wood is turned into cylinders and then carefully marked for proper grain orientation so that when pieces are reassembled, they will go back together with matching grain. The first step is to prepare the silver around the rim of the eggs. Cut the silver to the proper length, solder it together. A solid band of metal is never a good idea around wood because of the expansion and contraction of the wood. Either it will break the silver as the wood expands, or it will fall off as the wood shrinks. So I cut the band into a zigzag pattern, sort of like an accordion shape that stretches. I anneal the silver so that it is very springy. Now, as the wood expands and contracts, the little sawn slices will expand and contract with the wood. Now we take the wood to the metal lathe where we can precisely control the cuts to exactly fit the shape of the silver. Notice the precision. It's easy to control the tolerances to 1/1000th of an inch. We stop to measure the exact outside diameter with calipers and make the final adjustment to get the diameter exactly what we want. I use a boring bar on the metal lathe to precisely control the interior dimensions. This is needed for a tight fit for the retaining ring that will go on top of the silver. The dial indicator allows you to control the depth of the cut very precisely. We cut a groove that exactly fits the width of the silver. Then we give the silver a final polishing and check the fit to make sure that the silver fits on the exterior diameter of the wood and the silver fits into the groove we cut and the retaining cap fits snugly to hold it in place. Now it's time to rough out the interior of the Blackwood. We first rough it out by hand using a captive hollowing tool, and then we take it to the Ornamental Lathe to get a very precise control because we have to mate the surface of the Blackwood with the outer surface of the maple. Rough out the exterior shape of the matching piece of maple, and then take it to the Ornamental Lathe for the very precise final shaping. The final fitting is a very time-consuming operation. You match the two pieces together, gently rotate them, look for high spots. You'll see the high spots with a little bit of glazing. Take that down with a negative rake scraper, sand it, and then try again. This is repeated many times until we find that we have interference over the entire surface of the maple interior piece and the Blackwood exterior piece. Then it's time for gluing with epoxy. The next day we do the same thing with the maple. Rough it out by hand, get the inside exactly the shape, rough out the brown ivory to match, fit it together and glue it. The next day we do the same, hollowing out the inside of the brown ivory. Then we cut it down to the exact thickness we want, and we're ready to start planning the interior design. The interior pattern is carefully designed on computer simulation. Then we take it to the Ornamental Lathe and cut through the thin layers to reveal the contrasting patterns of wood. After doing the same on both the top half of the egg and the bottom, we're ready to cut threads on the ornamental lathe to have the two pieces of the egg fit together with threads. Now we're ready to start working the exterior of the egg. First, we rough shape the exterior. Then using a negative rake scraper, we make a very final cut on the egg to give a very smooth finish. Follow that with sanding and finishing. Next we cut grooves in the exterior of the egg that match the diameter of the wire that we're going to put within. In this case, I'm using a very small end mill to cut the grooves for the spirals. Next, we cut lengths of silver wire and carefully put them into the groove. We use a leather mallet to gently tap them in place so that we don't distort the wire. All of the silver that I use on my work is Argentium brand sterling silver. It's a new patented alloy of sterling silver which is highly tarnish resistant. Now it's time to start making the filigree base. I make my own filigree wire from twisted silver. The filigree wire is slightly flattened so that you get good adhesion with the solder joints. All of the shaping and fitting is done by hand. It takes a lot of trial and error to get the things to fit just right. Each piece is carefully soldered one piece at a time. With such fine wire, it's easy to melt the wire, destroying the piece. So one needs to be very careful to melt the solder but not melt the wire. It gets more complicated once the piece starts taking the shape of a three-dimensional object. Here I've made a mold from maple wood that exactly matches the base of the egg. This allows me to gently shape the filigree to exactly conform to the shape of the egg. When the base is done, I'll tumble it in tumbling media to shine it up, and then our work is done.